Hello and welcome to Apologetics 101. I am your host, Christian apologist, Brian here. Today we're going to do a short video, probably about maybe 30 minutes or so long. It's going to be called Out of Context, and simply put, I'm going to be dealing with a section in which she specifically took me personally out of context in Erika's response video, because this is part of the Tomkins controversy. Probably should have started with that. And of course, like I said, I have three goals to my series here. Is that one of them was to respond to Erika concerning her response to my Tomkins interview. And this one is going to be one of those ones that respond to it. It's going to be a short one. It's going to be mostly responding to certain things she took me out of context. Of course, she also took Dr. Jeffrey Tomkins out of context. One of the ones we dealt with at least one of those that she took Dr. Jeffrey Tomkins out of context concerning Richard Bugs. We dealt with that early on in the series, at the beginning of the series, actually. And so we talked about that as well. And there's been other places I remember they're taking Dr. Jeffrey Tomkins out of context. But she also took me out of context in a number of places. One really silly one, but we'll get to that one. There was a major one where she took me out of context as well that I do want to talk about. All right, like I said, this is just going to be a short video, just real quickly, deal with those things. And without further ado, let's dive in. Without further ado, let's dive in. Like I said, this is not going to be a very long video. I just wanted to do a real quick one on this. Let's jump straight to it, and let's deal with certain things that she said here.
When I entered this interview, I didn't know what I was going to find. I didn't know. It's hard to really say with an interviewee because you don't know if they're going to tell you something that you agree with, if they're going to tell you something you don't agree with, if they're going to challenge your assumptions, if they're going to challenge other people's assumptions, if they're going to agree with mainstream views or go against those mainstream views. You don't really know what you're going to find until you actually get there and actually have a conversation with them. A lot of times I'm able to predict what they're going to say because I see what they write and other things. But in other cases, you don't know. So I had no idea. I didn't know whether, I'm not a geneticist. A lot of the critics that was badgering me are not geneticists. Most
Guys, I don't know if you know this, but I'm not a geneticist, and this is something that I get dogged on all the time for when I'm tangling with young Earth creationists. If you're not a geneticist, you're actually just not allowed to talk about genetics, according to a lot of these young Earth creationists. And to me, this is super hysterical because they do nothing but talk about things outside of their own area of expertise. In this exact video, Tomkins spends time talking about paleoanthropology. He's not a paleoanthropologist, right? But I mean, when he does it, it's fine because he agrees with the YC. So he's allowed to talk out of his area of expertise, but nobody else is. Now, what I'll tell you...
All right, before she let her finish there, to start with, that's not at all what I was talking about. What I was talking about was more or less people that didn't have experience with genetics, and I didn't have experience, and so we don't know how this stuff is done, and so I wanted to talk to an actual geneticist to find out how this is actually done, the process of these kinds of genetic studies. I was not saying that you cannot talk outside your own area of expertise. I've always said, if you're knowledgeable about a particular subject, if you've studied it, if you're knowledgeable about it, then you could talk on it. Now, the only time I will make a connection to your lack of knowledge or experience or academic training in a particular area is when you obviously show obvious lack of knowledge and experiential knowledge, including cognitive knowledge, in the particular area. And then, for example, Erika has made lots and lots of very public mistakes, and she continues to make very public mistakes. Or at least while she was continuing going on in this, I think she's kind of, I'm thinking she's gonna I won't say back down exactly because I think she still holds to it. But what I will say is that she's not as I think there's going to be kind of a transference where Erika's going to kind of stop. Uh, 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 I shouldn't say stop producing videos, although that I think that's likely, that she's not going to be producing videos on this particular matter as much as she used to. I think she's just kind of going to drift away from it. But I think there's kind of a transference of power here from her to Glenn Williamson, aka Roohif, because she tanked it really, really badly, and no result she comes up with anyone's going to trust anyhow. So, and of course she continues to make those mistakes in those videos as well, which we'll get into as time goes on. And so Roohip is now taking kind of a more active role in this because how badly she tanked it. But in any given case, um, um, so if I see something like that, I'm definitely gonna connect. Oh, this person's doesn't. I mean, it's very likely that it's because of a lack of training and experience and knowledge in this particular area. She had a very winged approach, where she just kind of learned as she go, and unfortunately, she wound up making lots and lots and lots of really, really newbie rookie type mistakes. And these mistakes have been exposed publicly and acknowledged by others, including other evolutionists, and so it's a lot of crazy stuff has happened, but it has all come out in public. And it's funny thing is because if you actually look at her response to my Tomkins interview, about 95% or so of it has been directly refuted. I mean, up to now, between 90 and 95%. Some of it I already know the responses to, and I'm going to refute those eventually. But almost all of it, what she said, including her self-disciple analysis, has been refuted because she didn't replicate Tompkins' method correctly. Her original results were refuted, even by her. So, when I see stuff like that, yeah, I'm going to connect it to it. In fact, even Erika connected to her lack of experience in this area. Why? Because she's not a geneticist, and why is she doing that? So that I would do something like that, but I would not sit there and say, "Hey, look, if you're not a geneticist, you can't talk about genetics." I don't say that. I don't argue that. I don't even claim that. I don't even believe that. So why would I say that? And in fact, I didn't say it here. What I was talking about was the experience of a geneticist in understanding what goes into that process, because I don't know what goes in that process because I've never done it before. It's kind of like when you learning how to drive, you read the driving manual. That's natural, right? You want to pass the learner's test, but you don't really know how to drive until you get behind the wheel and actually do it. In the same way, you don't really know how to drive, don't know how this is done until you've actually done it yourself. And so I question whether these people had that experience, but I'm not saying that you can't talk outside your field or anything like that. And I don't think, given her nature of taking people out of context and misrepresenting people's positions, I honestly doubt that the YSCs, a lot of the YSCs she encountered probably said that. Because she's right, a lot of YSCs do talk outside their field of expertise all the time. And that's acceptable if you're very knowledgeable in it. But when they do, they're always really knowledgeable in it. Like, for example, Dr. Carter, for example, his field of study academically is in marine biology. But you know something? His knowledge of genetics is very superb. It's really on par there. So, yeah, I would consider him, you might consider him amateur geneticist. Maybe you'll consider him a geneticist anyhow. But I thought of him a geneticist too until I saw his academic degree. So he may not be officially a geneticist, but you know something? He does really good job at genetics. He knows a lot in the field, and so I respect that. My knowledge in a particular given field, I would say personal. I would distinguish between personal and academic. Like what I learned at the university level, while I'm in college. I'm fixing to go back soon, hopefully. But I learned what I can in college, and then also I have what I know and learn my own personal studies, and sometimes I'll have academic training in it, and I'll also have personal training in it where I've actually studied it myself, self-taught. In the case of logic, for example, I was trained academically in it because I had to take courses on logic even before I took any apologetic courses. And so I'm trained academically on logic, but I'm also trained personally on it because I actually became very interested in the subject matter and started studying everything I can of my own logic. The fact that you don't have a degree in it, I never argue that means you can't talk. If you're knowledgeable of something, you can't talk about it. I've never argued that, neither here nor anywhere. But later on down the road, we're going to find out that she will act. Not only she will misrepresent what I actually did say, but she's going to sit there and make it look like I said something I didn't say and put words in my mouth I never actually said. And we'll see that later on as we move forward in these clips. But in any given case, my position has never, ever been that you cannot talk outside your field. And I never argued that Erika couldn't. If she was knowledgeable in the subject matter, I would absolutely support the idea of her being able to talk outside of the field if she was knowledgeable in it. But she appears to be... Her rookiness in the area of genetics does show up a lot in the course of this discussion and in the course of the controversy. And so, and when that becomes obvious, I think we should talk about that. Her lack of experience might be resulting in a lot of the mistakes she's making.
Is that I do think that we have to give kind of a little bit of authority isn't really the word. Trusting experts is important, right? But at the same time, anybody can test methods for themselves, right? Anybody can go out there and investigate certain claims. And, ideally, if you're an expert in a subject, your work should be able to stand up to the scrutiny of non-experts. That's part of the problem with Tomkins, is that I'm not a geneticist, and I was able to show that his work was garbage.
All right. Couple things there. I'll get to that, what she said there at the end there. Could you be able to get out and test someone's method? I think you could if you're knowledgeable in the field of study that this concerns. But she lacked knowledge and experience, and it did cost her in the end. That's why she tanked it so badly in this controversy. What about what she said about her, Tompkins' results being garbage? No, that wasn't the case. In fact, actually, the opposite. Her results were garbage. And she actually admits this later on, or here recently of this video, she actually admits that her results were garbage. Because the reason is because she failed to replicate Tompkins' method correctly, and she was doing a global percent. That's why she kept getting less than 100%. She wasn't replicating Tompkins' method correctly. He wasn't doing a global percent of all of the each search result. He wasn't doing that. He was taking the best match. He was taking the best alignment. And she failed to do that, and so she failed to replicate his method correctly. She does admit this later, and all the results that she did in all those previous videos that was prior to her doing this response to the Tompkins interview, all of them were bogus. I mean, she even admits that from 2011, 2015, it's trash. It's literally no good, the results she made on that. She didn't know what she was doing, and she made some serious rookie errors, and they were bad. As far as her refuting, I think she likes the idea of someone with a mic and a webcam and a YouTube channel refuting an expert in a particular field. Now, there's always a possibility of that. But then again, she makes it look like that should not be able to happen. That's not true either, because I refute evolutionists all the time. that doesn't mean anything, really. You can respond to an evolutionist, you can refute them, you can do all that stuff and not be an expert. It's always possible, because experts are human like us, and they've got worldviews, presuppositions, all kinds of other things that interfere with their judgment and things like that. And I've actually taken on full-blown evolutionary scientists in open mic nights with Donny and be able to defeat them. It doesn't mean they're any less of a scientist all of a sudden. Like, they're not really that good of a scientist because Brian, who's not a scientist, was able to defeat them. That's stupid. That doesn't make them any less of a scientist. Doesn't make them any less of an expert on a particular subject matter, because there's always the possibility that they're, they're human. They can make mistakes and that sort of thing. But in any given case, as far as that goes, Tomkins was not defeated by Erika's videos at all. In fact, if anything, his study was vindicated, because all her studies, all her videos prior to the response video she makes to my Tomkins interview is bogus. So it turns out that her claim to this being garbage is incorrect. It's not garbage. That it's the results that she had was bogus, and she made a lot of serious errors in the process, and she did not duplicate Tomkins' method, as she herself admitted it. Let's move forward.
But I digress. Let's continue, because we've got quite a bit to get through. Got quite a bit.
Criticisms about Tomkins' work is coming from people that are not geneticists.
By the way, my video is normally not that fast. She's got it on higher speed.
And so here was my chance to be able to talk to a real geneticist about this very discussion. And so, I didn't know what, going in, I didn't know what I was going to find. I didn't know if I was going to be proven right, proven wrong, if there was a flaw there, if there's a flaw here. I didn't know what I was going to find. And that's typical of a lot of interviews. You don't really know that much about, what's going to happen. Or I knew that there was critics who had issues with his methodology.
You are done, Tomkins. This method, it's through. It's finished. Throw the towel in.
I knew that there was some young Earth creationists even had.
They put me in there. Sweet. Yes, I will let you know that I do have a problem with the genetics of Jeffrey Tomkins. I stand guilty as charged as a hater and as a critic. But Jeffrey Tomkins did something amazing, right? He posted all his methodologies online for all his different papers, and some of the methods differed between the papers. So as someone who had a problem with his methods, I was able to check them for myself using controls to see how they fared. And if you'll remember from that video, using Jeffrey Tomkins' methods from 2011, 2013, and 2015, humans are not 100% similar to themselves. Not a population of one population of humans to a population of different humans. But a human reference genome to itself is not 100% identical using those early Tomkins methods. And using the later Tomkins methods, he doesn't weight his data. So a sequence that's 300 base pairs long and 50% similar, right? If you're comparing humans and chimps, let's say, that's going to be weighted exactly the same as a sequence that is 300,000 base pairs long and 99% similar. Both of these are super duper actual flaws in methodology. Not an issue in philosophy, not an issue in sort of like a strategy, right? Not like different ways of measuring. Like, they are categorically incorrect ways to compare genomes or to just do math. So
no, not really. But anyway, as far as her situation with weighted or unweighted, I actually plan on doing an entire video just on weighted versus unweighted. So I'll save my comments for that later. Now, everything else she said before that is completely bogus. Because if you replicate Tomkins' method correctly, you would get 100% on self-to-self. In fact, I was trying to look for it earlier to see if she took it out in her new video on her 84% video that she made, the new version, and I couldn't even find where she did the self-to-self, because everything else is almost exactly the same, except she created some new experiments or something like that. That's, but just about almost exactly the same. And she added a part in there concerning Richard bugs and that sort of thing. She just added some stuff in there and edited some other stuff out. And apparently I could not find, it could be still in there. I mean, I didn't want to go through the whole video again. I just wanted to try to skip around and see if I could find it. But I don't, but I couldn't remember, I couldn't find it anywhere, and I didn't see where she did it. So I think she might have not have recorded that part of the self-to-self. Probably because it was bogus. Tompkins' method, if properly done, replicated correctly, which she did not replicate it correctly, she admitted later. If she had replicated it correctly, it would return 100% exact match. Because best alignment against the best alignment is 100%. 100% correct. Automatically. So that is completely bogus. And it's now, and you know, the funny thing is, she's throwing up all this snark, all this ridicule here. And she had to eat a lot of crow later when she made that confession. But she did not duplicate Tompkins' method correctly. She did not, and Tompkins' method, if correctly replicated, would have yielded 100% against itself. With the same reference genome against itself, using Tompkins' method, it would be 100%. Beyond a shadow of a doubt. And of course, there's also some issues I have with some of the controls that she used, but I'm not going to voice them at this time. I'm going to save those for later videos. I am going to be doing a video called Erika versus Created Cons, which she has misrepresented our position on Created Cons, because in our position we don't really care, you know, how much something is similar or dissimilar. It's the way in which something is similar or dissimilar that our position is. And I've corrected her on this. I've told her this a gazillion times. She continues to misrepresent our position on it. She thinks, oh, look, if you use Tomkins' method, these two things are more similar than even chimps and humans, or more alike, or chimps and humans, you know, are more alike, or you know, it's like, than two things that we agree is the same kind of creature. And I was like, that doesn't matter in our position. And she doesn't understand that. But in any given case, I am going to do an Erika versus Created Cons, and deal with some of those arguments there when I deal with that. But in any given case, but it obviously she did not refute Tompkins' method. Now, what she said on weighted versus unweighted, like I said, I'm going to do a later video on that, because I'm going to do and dedicate an entire video just on weighted versus unweighted. And the real issue is really going to be the data. It's going to come down to the data. And she doesn't understand that. Carter tried to explain that to her, and she didn't understand. She didn't understand it. She thought, oh, well, all you got to do is weight it. Weighting it doesn't give you an accurate answer. Just because you weight something doesn't give you an accurate answer. You have to find out what's going on with the data. And she didn't do that. In fact, if anything, I do agree Tompkins made a mistake in not looking at the data. And I've said that, you know, that it's only one of the few actual mistakes I think Tomkins did make. I wish he had gone back, looked at the data, found out what was the unalignable regions of the genome, and put that information in his papers. I really would have liked to seen that, but he didn't do that. And if there's any mistake that Tomkins made, that would be one of them. That would be one of the very few that he actually made. And of course, you couldn't really average that kind of data out, but you also can't weight it, because if you try to weight it, it's still going to give you an inaccurate number. You have to find out why the data is as irregular as it is, because the data is actually bimodal. But we'll get into that later in a later video, and we'll cover that. And that's going to be an interesting one for sure. I've been already studying that one. I've got one coming out that I'm going to be coming out hopefully within the next couple weeks. Ungapped versus Ungapped, where I'll be responding mostly to Glenn Williamson, a little bit response to Erika, but mostly to Glenn Williamson. And that's going to be a big one. And I'm looking forward to that. But I'm trying to get a lot of these smaller ones out of the way that I've been wanting to do in this series for a while, and hopefully maybe even get, if I can, get Erika versus Created Cons out of the way as well. But in any given case, but a lot of the stuff that they discover on that, or a lot of her arguments on that's already been refuted. But she didn't know that at the time that this video came out. She thought she had refuted Tomkins, and her challenging of Tomkins' method was successful, and it wasn't. It was all one big flop.
So we've got a couple of different issues going on here. Oh yeah, good point, Zach B. Hancock. I checked my work with actual geneticists anyways. That is something that I did do. I mentioned this in the video, right? Like, I checked with a lot of experts because I'm not an actual geneticist, right? I just took genetics in undergrad and in my graduate programs. But like, I guess I'm not an actual geneticist, so I'm not allowed to double check Tomkins's work.
Again, nobody's saying you're not allowed to double check Tomkins' work. I certainly ain't saying that. I'm not saying that. But in any case, she said she talked to a lot of geneticists. A lot of times these goes unnamed. The only time I've seen her ever actually name them was in her video. She put up on the side some people that she talked to. But out of those people, I couldn't find out who the third one was. There was one, I think it had a Chinese name, maybe. It looked like it was two different persons on the third one, but I couldn't identify who that was. So I don't know who exactly it is that that she's referring to there. But the first two, Bob Harris and Ian Korf, which I've had interviewed before on this channel, and both of them are not geneticists, they're biologists. And she does this in the same context where she's talking about comparative geneticists, but they're not even geneticists. I know Ian Korf wasn't, because I actually talked to him about that, and he told me he didn't have any degrees in genetics, so he's not a geneticist. He doesn't do genetic studies. But he does specialize in bioinformatics, which is what Blast concerns. That's why I used him on that. But he's actually an evolutionary biologist, actually. Dr. Bob Harris, I looked up him. He's also a biologist. I don't know if he's an evolutionary biologist, but I know he's a biologist. And so neither one of those guys are geneticists, so it's highly doubtful that they would be comparative geneticists. I guess because they're experts on their particular programs. That's fine. They can be that. That's why I used Ian Korf myself, but he's not a geneticist. So, but as far as people she's checking him. She's not talking about Ian Korf, because I know that she hasn't talking to Ian Korf at that point. But I don't know who it is that she talked to, because she doesn't really name them. She doesn't give any kind of names or name drop any kind of names there. So I don't know who she's referring to. But in any case, more than likely they were all evolutionists. One of the things that I try to do whenever I was doing research on this and talking to geneticists and experts and things like that, I kind of gave a kind of a balance. Not only did I talk to creationist scientists and geneticists and experts and things like that, like I interact with Dr. Jeffrey Tomkins, I interact with Dr. Rob Carter, but I also contacted people that were evolutionists, they were geneticists and biologists and experts and on a particular algorithm or whatever. So there was a kind of a balance between the two. More than likely, Erika only talked to evolutionary scientists. I guarantee you that every one of those scientists he talked to was evolutionist. She didn't talk to creationist scientists, which is, I did both to create kind of like a healthy balance between the two, so I can have that discussion with them. And of course, worldviews play into effect and presuppositions and things like that. And so we have to be mindful of those things as well. But in any case, I don't think she'd ever talked to a creationist geneticist or discussed this with them. I think she only talked to evolutionary ones. And of course, we don't know what the context is of the conversation. She has a bad habit of misrepresenting people and taking people out of context. So what exactly did she say? I mean, what was going on there? We don't know. She doesn't tell us. She doesn't give any kind of context. She doesn't quote from them. She doesn't give us names. She don't do any of those things. The only 3 names that she gave, and 2 out of those 3, in her 84% video, that is, I know 2 out of 3 is definitely biologists. The other ones, she named them like it was one name, but looked like it might have been 2 names, like it was a work that they did, and he put year that they did it. I guess I don't know, but I didn't know who they were, and I could not find anything on them, so I couldn't be able to identify them. The first 2, she had Bob Harris and Ian Korf, and I already knew what Ian Korf's degree was because he told me. Both of them are biologists; they're not geneticists. So they're definitely not comparative geneticists. So, but here she's obviously before she even talked to Ian Corp. So I have no idea what geneticists, and of course, given how she looks at expertise, were they really students of genetics, or are they actual geneticists, or are they amateur geneticists? I mean, exactly, are they professional geneticists? I don't know. So I don't know that either, because like I said, she don't give us any names.
That being said, eventually in here we're going to get to Tomkins' debut. So let's continue onward.
Questions about how his methodology would work under certain conditions.
No, it's just like I guess we could just go back to the fact that it would be nice if Tomkins would reply more, so we could get to the bottom of like what he's working on. He's very hard to contact.
And
oh my god, oh my god, oh no! Apologetics 101 has put me and Donny on the same team. We're both the bad guys together on this. Me and Team Standing for Truth we're all haters together. the evil cabal. That's that's kind of insulting actually.
All right, this is another place she talked me out of context. I think she was trying to be silly, but she ended up taking me out of context in the process. What basically was said was that some people wanted to know how this is. They want to know what's going on, what Tomkins did, and that sort of thing. And I played a clip showing Matt, who was co-hosting with Donny. Donny wasn't even the one speaking. In which Matt says that we want to know what he's working on. He's so hard to contact. Essentially, the idea was that everyone wants to get a hold of Dr. Jeffrey Tomkins to find out what's going on, and that sort of thing. And that's what I was getting at with that. I was not putting him on par with. In fact, it had actually nothing to do with putting him equal footing with Erika, or saying anything bad, or Matt saying something against that. It had nothing to do with that. She just basically took it completely out of context. So I didn't put her on equal par with Erika. She said it's insulting. I said no, not if you take me in context. Take me in context, it wasn't insulting at all. Fortunately, Donny had already seen that video ahead of time, so he already knew the context of it. And besides, Donny wasn't even the one speaking. But so yeah. But in any case, that's not how I meant it. That's not what it was taken. She took that completely out of context. And some reason she found it funny, but probably because she misrepresented what I was saying. She could have misrepresented it, misunderstood it, because she kind of paused in the context in which that video was playing. I said something, she paused to respond to what I said previously, and then she started again, and then right after she started again, it played that clip. And I guess in the middle of all that, she didn't realize there was a specific context in which I was just simply saying that people want to understand what's going on here. Not that they were against Tomkins, or that they were the same as Erika, or challenging Tomkins in some way, or anything like that. That's not what I was getting at all. She just took me out of context. Again, I think she did that in the name of trying to be silly, but in the process of doing that, she did take me out of context.
And so I didn't know much of anything going into this discussion. But I did know at least two things. One, everyone wanted answers. And two, we're starting right now.
All right. I'm going to go fast forward to this, to the other part where she puts words in my mouth that I didn't actually say. Some reason she really liked that introduction there. But anyway, let's fast forward this.
So what about this whole idea of human evolution anyways? I just want to go over a few slides as to why that's really bogus from an anthropology perspective.
Oh my goodness, you guys, from an what? That's me. I'm an anthropologist, kind of. I'm a student in anthropology. That counts, kind of, right? I've done my own work. I get to be kind of an anthropologist.
No, there's no such thing as a kind of anthropologist. You're an anthropologist or not. You're a student of anthropology. Eventually, she will probably likely have her PhD. She's specializes, at least she's going for the specialization of paleoanthropology, which I think is an interesting field, minus the evolutionary assumptions. But she wants to sit there and say, oh, well, since I'm a student of it, then you might as well go ahead and call me that. Not the way it goes. You have to finish your degree off for you to get that title. That way you can say you've earned that title, and I'm sure she will earn it. But the bottom line is that she isn't at that moment in time. So, you know, so she said, I did my homework, so I'm you can go ahead and call me that. I do my homework too, but, you know, that don't mean I'm automatically what I'm going for. So, you know.
But now wait a second. Didn't Apologetics 101 say at the beginning that like people like who aren't geneticists are dunking on Jeff's work and they shouldn't be doing that because they're not geneticists? Well, that's so weird because Jeff's not a paleontologist. He's not an anthropologist, and he's sitting here talking about human evolution. Yeah, that's so strange. Boy, that almost feels a little hypocritical, doesn't it?
All right. You saw how she just put words in my mouth I didn't actually say. I never said nothing about that you can't do that if you're not a geneticist. I never said that. She literally put words in my mouth I never actually said. But in any given case, no, I never said that. Like I said, I was talking about people not having experience dealing with this, and I wanted someone on my channel that I could talk to that's done these studies and knows what goes into it. That's what I was talking about. She took me out of context. Not only did she take me out of context and reinterpret what I was saying, but she put words in my mouth here that I didn't actually say. I didn't say that. That's not what I said. And I've never argued that you can't talk outside your own area of expertise. So this is faulty, and it's obviously strawman because I don't actually hold that position at all. So Tomkins can sit there and talk outside his area of expertise if he wants to. Just like Erika could, just like I can, if you're knowledgeable in that area. Tomkins has personally written articles for ICR concerning alleged human evolution and on fossil finds and discoveries that the evolutionists have made, and he's written articles on it. So he does come well knowledge in this particular area. And so, yes, he can talk outside that area. As long as he sits there and knows what he's talking about. That's fine. You are allowed to. I never said otherwise. So, again, Erika is taking me out of context, but she does something even worse here. Not only did she misunderstood what I said, not only did she misrepresent what I said, not only did she take me out of context of what I actually said, but she actually put words in my mouth that I didn't even say. So she not only did she misinterpret me, but she put words in my mouth in the process because she really believed that's what I was talking about, or at least she wants you to believe that that's what I was talking about, but that's not what I was talking about. And so this is completely inconsistent. And she wants to talk about hypocrisy. Go to her channel and view her response to Dr. Jason Lau on her response to Dr. Jason Lau's interview with Eli Ayala from Revealed Apologetics. And she's constantly badging on Dr. Jason Lau because he's not an expert in paleoanthropology and because he's talking outside of his area of expertise and things like that. So yeah, so talk about hypocrisy, and she does it a number of other times. She also challenges the lack of expertise on the part of Dr. Roohif and trying to think of that geneticist's name. But the other one that wrote the book with I can't think of the geneticist's name now for some reason. Oh, I'm sure it'll come to me after the video's done. I'll probably look it up or something. But if you want to drop a comment below, I can't think of his name for some reason. I don't know why. Suddenly, I'm drawing a blank. But Christopher Roop and another a geneticist came up with a book called Contested Bones, and she did a response series on that book. And her very first episode in that, and she actually goes over that and says, well, this person is this expertise, this person this expertise. Neither one of them are experts in this particular area. And that sort of thing. So she talking about hypocrisy there. But in any given case. But I've always said that that you can talk outside your area of expertise as long as you're knowledgeable of it. Now, if you clearly are not knowledgeable of it, especially if your lack of knowledge isn't just a cognitive knowledge, but experiential knowledge, then yeah, I'm going to point out that it's probably likely due to your lack of expertise. And it actually came out that she made a lot of newbie mistakes, a lot of rookie mistakes, and a lot of silly ones. I mean, even she mentally kicked herself for making them. And these mistakes have come out publicly, and they're exposed now, and everyone knows about them. And so her lack of expertise in the field of genetics is now, I mean, you can't escape that fact. So it's like, okay, why is she making these kinds of mistakes? Probably because she doesn't have experience with this. She doesn't know what she's doing, and that's clear from her arguments. That's clear from her videos. That's clear from the mistakes she made, and that sort of thing. Now, I do not think, I honestly, if she is knowledgeable in a particular area, even if it's outside of her area of expertise, absolutely she can talk about it. I've never said that someone could not talk about it if they're outside of their area of expertise. I've never said that. And I won't say that because I think that you can. And if I did say something like that, it would be kind of like shooting myself in the foot, because she's right. We do talk about it outside of our area of expertise all the time. Absolutely. But that's not what I do. That's not what I've said, and I don't think other YCs would say that either, despite her claiming that. I'd have to see the context of what she's saying to see what they said, but given her track record with taking people out of context and misrepresenting what they actually said, I have no doubt that they probably didn't actually say that, or didn't mean it the way she thought they meant it. But in any case, if someone is like, you can talk outside of your expertise as long as you know what you're talking about. Tomkins knows what he's talking about here because he's written on this subject matter. He's well studied in the area, and so he can talk on it. So yes, he definitely can. But anyway, let me skip to the conclusion now. All right. So basically, I would say that there was several places that she took me out of context in that video response, and I just wanted to be able to go over some of those things. And I mentioned that in the chat because I did throw that up in the chat right before I left. I just basically went in there, threw that at, and nobody even knew I was there. I was just, like the invisible man or something, because I didn't comment or nothing in the live chat. I just was watching the video, and I was really disappointed with this video when I saw it. Her taking me out of context. She misrepresented what I said. She used she just reiterated a lot of the bad arguments. So I was just very disappointed in it. It was not very good. In terms of response videos, and most of my channel is designed around response videos, and so this was not a good response video. So I sat there and dropped a comment real quick in the chat, and I X'd out of it. And then I went back later and found out that several evolutionists pounced on me the moment I put that chat out. I knew that they would, or the moment I put that reply out, but I knew they would. But despite that, I went and dropped it real quick and X'd out it. Everybody thought it was still there, and so they just kept on going and trying to attack. But they had some nonsensical stuff. I think one person did reply to me saying that he took me out of context, and she made some sort of nonsensical thing about context or something. It didn't make no sense. I don't even remember what it was. It was just really silly and nonsensical. Sometimes people throw up nonsensical stuff just to get you not to comment on it, because you can't comment. It's nonsense. It's very difficult to do. But anyway, I will be responding to what she said on weighted and unweighted. Gap versus Ungapped. Ungapped is not really a problem, that sort of thing. They have a new argument that they're now presenting, because they think that Tomkins weighted it by dividing by the chording length, which is false, but we'll get into that. We'll get into that on my next video. All right. Thank you for joining me on it. I know it's been a short one. A lot of you have been wanting short videos anyhow, so you might like this one. But I just wanted to point out that she did take me out of context, and I don't hold that position about person has to be an expert at something to talk about it or to challenge another person's method or anything like that. That's not my position. That's not my beliefs. That's not what I argue. I've never said that. Erika took me out of context is essentially what she did. All right. Thank you for joining me on here, and I'll see you next time on Apologetics 101. Bye.